Have you ever found yourself in one of those uncomfortable situations where someone publicly disrespects you? Maybe it was a cutting remark disguised as a joke, or a dismissive comment that caught you off guard and left you feeling small. In moments like that, have you ever stopped and wondered, how do I respond in a way that doesn't just protect my dignity, but actually earns me respect? Not just from the person being rude, but from everyone watching. You're not alone. We've all experienced situations like this, moments that make us feel powerless. But here's the truth. You have far more control over how people see you than you think, and it starts with how you choose to react. In this video, we're going to break down powerful, practical techniques rooted in the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy. These strategies don't just help you stay calm in tough situations, they teach you how to turn disrespect into strength and walk away with even more confidence than before. Stick around, because we're going to explore exactly how to respond in the most intelligent and effective way. You'll learn how to stand your ground without aggression, how to protect your peace without retreat, and how to command respect by mastering your inner world. Let's start with why these moments happen in the first place. Often, it's not about you. Some people try to lift themselves up by pulling others down. It's a tactic rooted in insecurity, not strength, and it shows up in workplaces, friend groups, and even families. Stoicism teaches us a powerful truth. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you attract by how you live, how you carry yourself, and how clearly you define your worth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength becomes your shield. When you carry calmness like a weapon and boundaries like armor, others feel it. They learn not to test you. And over time, your presence itself becomes a line they won't cross. So in this video, we're going to explore 6 powerful Stoic strategies to help you command respect, hold your ground, and never lose your sense of self, even in the most uncomfortable situations. Let's get into it. First tip: first impressions matter more than you think. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt judged before you even said a word? Maybe it was the way someone glanced at you, or how they chose to greet others more warmly than they did you. It might feel unfair, but it's real. First impressions are powerful. They shape how others see you and, more importantly, how they treat you moving forward. What's often missed, though, is that those first few seconds aren't just about how you look, they're about how you hold yourself. Your body language, eye contact, and energy speak long before your mouth does. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control. And the way you present yourself in those first moments is completely within your control. You don't need to be rich, famous, or extroverted to leave a strong impression. You just need to be present, composed, and confident in your own skin. That alone sets you apart. Imagine this. You're at a business event. Someone important walks in, scans the room, and makes their way toward you. They reach out to shake your hand. Now picture 2 versions of your response. In the first, you remain seated, distracted, maybe glance up at them and shake their hand half-heartedly. In the second, you stand up, meet their eyes, smile, and offer a firm handshake. Which version sends the message that you respect yourself and that they should? 2? It might sound like a small detail, but in the eyes of others, it speaks volumes. The way you rise to meet someone, the strength in your posture, the quiet confidence in your eye contact. These are all micro signals that say, I value myself and I value you. And people can't help but mirror the energy you bring. The Stoics believed that our outer actions are reflections of our inner character. Marcus Aurelius emphasized that we should always act with intention, because even the smallest gestures are opportunities to embody our values. So when you stand up to greet someone, you're not just performing a polite ritual, you're showing that you're grounded, awake, and worthy of attention. Let me share a real example. At a leadership seminar I once attended, there was a man who didn't say much, but everyone noticed him. Whether he was shaking hands with a CEO or thanking the waiter for coffee, he always stood up, looked people in the eye, and spoke with clarity. It wasn't forced or fake, it was simply how he operated. That simple presence earned him more respect than anyone else in the room, and people naturally gravitated toward him. In contrast, there was another attendee who remained seated when others came to greet him. He wasn't trying to be rude, it was just a habit, but it created a subtle, unspoken impression, disinterest, or even insecurity. And even though he had valuable ideas, fewer people took the time to connect with him. That's how important those first few seconds are. Here's the Stoic lesson. Respect begins with how you treat yourself. You can't expect others to take you seriously if you don't act like someone worth taking seriously. And the truth is, most of the respect you receive in life won't be based on your resume or your words. It'll be based on how you carry yourself when no one is watching. So how can you apply this in your everyday life? Start with awareness. The next time you greet someone, at work, in public, or even over a video call, be intentional. Sit up straight. Make eye contact. Acknowledge the other person fully. If you're in person, stand up. If you're online, look into the camera as if you're looking them in the eye. These gestures don't require status or confidence. They build it. It's not about being perfect or overly formal. It's about being present. People respect presence far more than performance. And presence, according to Stoicism, comes from knowing who you are and acting in alignment with that knowledge in every interaction. Don't underestimate the power of small, consistent behaviors. When you train yourself to rise during greetings, to engage directly, and to lead with calm body language, you are practicing a form of silent stoicism. You are showing that your emotions are under control, your values are clear, and your respect for others is strong, because it comes from a place of self-respect. And over time, people will begin to respond differently to you. They won't always know why, but they'll feel it. That you are someone who shows up with intention, who doesn't shrink, and who quietly commands the space around them. And when others respect your presence, they begin to respect your voice, your ideas, and your boundaries. So the next time someone enters your orbit, take a breath, pause, and choose to be fully present. Stand, meet their eyes, and speak with quiet strength. It may seem like a small act, but it's actually the first step in teaching others how to treat you. This is what the Stoics knew. You don't need to demand respect. You just need to show up like someone who already has it. Second tip, handle interruptions with calm authority. Have you ever been in the middle of speaking, maybe sharing a thought in a meeting, telling a story at a dinner table, or trying to express yourself in a group, and suddenly someone interrupts you? It's jarring. It cuts into your flow. And it can make you feel disrespected, even invisible. For a split second, you might feel like your voice doesn't matter. And in that moment, your instinct might be to speak louder, fight for space, or immediately correct the other person. But here's the truth. The strongest response is often the quietest. Interruptions are more than just annoying. They're subtle signals of power dynamics. Sometimes they're intentional, someone trying to dominate the conversation. Other times, they're unintentional, but still leave you feeling dismissed. In either case, your response determines whether you command more respect or slowly start to lose it. So how do you handle interruptions without losing your cool? How do you stay composed and still let everyone in the room know that your voice matters? This is where Stoic philosophy becomes a game changer. The Stoics believed that our power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling ourselves. You don't have to match the interruption with noise. In fact, the most powerful response is silence, combined with presence. Next time someone interrupts you, don't jump in to reclaim the spotlight. Instead, pause. Turn your head slowly toward the person. Lock eyes with them, not with anger, but with clarity. Hold that calm, unshaken gaze for a few seconds. Let your silence speak. What happens next is subtle but profound. The room feels your presence. The person who interrupted you will often become aware of their mistake without you needing to say a word. It might sound like a small thing, but this is a powerful shift in energy. You've just demonstrated composure. You've shown that you don't need to beg for attention or argue for space. You hold your ground with stillness and intention. That alone makes people listen. I remember once during a professional group meeting, someone cut me off mid-sentence. I paused, looked at them directly, and said nothing. I waited. The silence was only a few seconds, but it created more tension than a loud objection ever could. They quickly noticed what they'd done and said, "Sorry, please go on." And I did, without raising my voice or explaining myself. That small moment reshaped how others saw me, not as someone who demands respect, but someone who already has it. This technique works especially well in public or group settings. Why? Because when you stay calm while being interrupted, people take notice. They see that you're not flustered or thrown off. You're centered, and that energy is magnetic. It tells others, this person knows their worth. Now let's make something clear. The goal isn't to embarrass the other person. Stoicism teaches us not to retaliate out of pride or ego. You're not trying to make someone feel small. You're simply setting a boundary without speaking a single harsh word. After that silent pause and steady gaze, you can simply resume your sentence. A line like, "Let me continue where I left off," is all you need to reestablish your place. It's firm, but respectful. The Stoics believed that we are defined not by what others do to us, but by how we choose to respond. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is exactly that moment. The interruption is outside your control. Your reaction is not. And when you respond with calm, unwavering self-possession, you send a message. I don't need to prove my worth. I simply won't let it be ignored. This also builds long-term strength. Each time you respond to disrespect, not with aggression, but with quiet power, you reinforce your sense of inner stability. And people begin to treat you differently. They become more mindful when speaking to you. They pause before interrupting you. Because they've learned, this is someone who doesn't get rattled. This is someone who holds themselves with dignity. So how do you practice this in everyday life? Start by noticing how often people interrupt you. Don't get angry. Just observe. Then, the next time it happens, use the pause. Look at them. Wait. Let your calmness fill the space. And once it's clear, continue your point without hesitation. No snark, no sarcasm, just composure. You'll be surprised how often this works. People begin to respect you not because you force them to, but because they sense that you respect yourself. And that, according to Stoicism, is where true power begins. This technique is more than a reaction. It's a way of training your nervous system to stay centered in the face of chaos. It's how you become unshakable, someone who others instinctively look to, because your presence feels grounded, clear, and deliberate. So the next time someone interrupts you, don't let your emotions take over. Breathe, hold your gaze, and remember, your silence, when used wisely, can say more than any outburst ever could. This is how Stoics command respect, not through force, but through self-mastery. Third tip, when someone tries to humiliate you with a joke. Have you ever been in a group of friends, colleagues, or even family, relaxed, comfortable, and suddenly someone makes a joke at your expense? Maybe they bring up an embarrassing memory, mock something personal, or disguise a jab in the form of humor. Everyone laughs, except you. For a moment, it stings. You feel caught off guard. A mix of shame and frustration builds inside, and your instinct might be to strike back with a sharper joke or call them out in front of everyone. But what if I told you there's a way to completely shift that dynamic, not by fighting back, but by taking control in a way that earns you even more respect? Stoic philosophy teaches us that no one can humiliate us unless we give them permission. As Epictetus put it, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. And that's the key. How you respond matters far more than what was said. When someone tries to humiliate you with a joke, your reaction becomes the real punchline. If you get defensive or angry, you play into their hands. But if you stay calm, composed, and unbothered, you shift the energy entirely. Here's a powerful strategy. Instead of reacting emotionally, look the person in the eye and ask them, genuinely and without sarcasm, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" That one simple question is incredibly disarming. Why? Because humor, especially the kind that relies on humiliation, is about timing and surprise. When you ask them to repeat the joke, you strip it of its momentum. You make them say it again slowly, and in doing so, you shine a light on the intent behind it. Suddenly, what seemed funny a moment ago starts to feel awkward, even cruel. And you didn't raise your voice. You didn't insult them back. You simply took control. Let me share a personal story. Years ago, during a reunion dinner with some old friends, someone brought up a story from our teenage years meant to embarrass me. Everyone laughed. It wasn't malicious, but it was sharp, and it landed wrong. My first instinct was to laugh it off or throw a counterpunch, but instead I paused, smiled gently, and said, "That's interesting. Can you repeat that story again?" The room shifted. My friend hesitated. The energy got quiet. When he tried to repeat the joke, it didn't land the same way. The humor drained out, and people started to notice that it wasn't just a harmless joke, it was an attempt to get a laugh at someone else's expense. I didn't have to shame him. The moment spoke for itself. This tactic works because it allows you to stay in control of your emotions while turning the mirror back on the person making the joke. It's subtle, respectful, but undeniably powerful. But why is this so effective from a Stoic perspective? Because it shows you're not ruled by emotion, you're not reactive, and most importantly, you don't need the approval of the crowd to validate your self-worth. You know who you are, and you don't crumble under pressure. You remain solid. This kind of inner strength is what Marcus Aurelius called fortress of the mind, a space within you that no insult can reach unless you open the gates. And once you learn how to guard that space, no one, not a friend, not a stranger, can steal your peace. Now there's a second layer to this tactic that makes it even more powerful. You don't follow up the question with bitterness. You stay neutral, even curious. Your calmness reveals that the joke didn't hit its target, and that's where the respect comes in. People in the room notice, they see that you're not easily rattled. And without making a scene, you've demonstrated a level of self-respect that sets a new tone, not just for that moment, but for future interactions. Here's how you can apply this in your daily life. The next time someone makes a joke that feels off or aimed at your dignity, don't rush to react. Take a breath, pause. Then ask with quiet confidence, "Can you repeat that?" Watch how the room shifts. You're not avoiding conflict, you're transforming it. You're choosing a response that keeps your values intact, protects your peace, and still holds others accountable for their words. This is the essence of Stoicism, not to become cold or distant, but to stay rooted when the ground shakes. To face emotional challenges not with rage, but with reason. And to show others through your actions that you are someone who lives by higher standards. When you do this consistently, people begin to treat you differently. They think twice before mocking you. They respect the presence you bring into the room. Not because you demand it, but because you've shown that you're not shaken by cheap remarks. And over time, you become the kind of person who doesn't just earn respect in the moment, you command it for a lifetime. Fourth tip, use a simple question to disarm provocation. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone tried to hurt you with words, carefully veiled behind sarcasm or passive-aggressive humor? Maybe it was a sly comment about your life choices, your success, or a past failure, and they dropped it right in the middle of a group setting, counting on the audience to amplify their point with laughter. You could feel the tension shift. Eyes turned to you. The spotlight suddenly felt cold. And in that moment, your instinct may have screamed for retaliation. Maybe you wanted to say something clever, something sharp, something that would make them regret it instantly. But deep down, another part of you whispered something different, something wiser. That whisper is the voice of reason, the voice of the Stoic. And it tells you, you don't have to fight to win. You don't have to lower yourself to their level. There's a better way to handle provocation, one that makes you stronger, not just in that moment, but in every interaction that follows. When someone tries to provoke you, the most disarming thing you can do is not to respond with anger or explanation, but instead, with a calm, unrelated question. A redirection so subtle, so composed, it completely shifts the energy without feeding the fire. Picture this. You're at a family dinner and someone makes a public remark about your career, saying, "Still working that same job, huh? I thought you'd be doing better by now." Everyone hears it. Everyone looks at you. But instead of bristling or defending yourself, you take a breath, smile, and ask, "By the way, does anyone know a good bakery around here? I want to bring something sweet to our next get-together." That question may seem out of place at first, but that's the beauty of it. In a single move, you take the conversation somewhere else, somewhere peaceful, light, and harmless. You don't give the attacker what they wanted. You don't react. You redirect. And here's where the power lies. Provocative comments are designed to lure you in. They depend on your reaction to validate their impact. The moment you respond emotionally, the attacker wins. But when you respond calmly, and even better, redirect the conversation with grace, they're left exposed. Their attempt at control falls flat. You haven't just avoided a conflict, you've claimed quiet authority. You've made it clear that your peace is not something others can disturb. This tactic may sound simple, but it requires deep emotional discipline. Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in mastering ourselves, not others. When we act impulsively, we give away our power, but when we choose to stay grounded, we reclaim it. Asking a disarming question in response to provocation is one of the clearest demonstrations of self-control. It tells the world, "I am not here to argue. I am not here to be dragged into your drama. I am above it, and I will remain above it. I remember a moment from my own experience that proved just how transformative this can be. During a group dinner, someone decided to mock a past project I'd worked on, one that hadn't gone as planned. They brought it up with a smirk, clearly expecting laughter at my expense. And for a moment, I felt it, that flash of heat rising in my chest, the instinct to defend myself or make a clever remark. But I caught myself. I smiled, looked around, and said, "Have you guys tried the dessert here? I've heard it's amazing." The entire table shifted. People laughed, but this time with me. The tension evaporated, and the would-be attacker had nowhere to go. His moment passed. The joke didn't land, and I had taken control of the situation without ever confronting him directly. That's the essence of Stoic action: calm under fire, composure under pressure, grace in the face of insult. What matters most is not what's said to you, but what you choose to do next. You can't always prevent people from being unkind, but you can always choose whether to hand them your peace. A disarming question is your way of keeping it, of redirecting the flow of energy back into neutral waters, without conflict or escalation. And there's more at play here than just strategy. There's character. When you respond this way consistently, people begin to see you differently. You become the one in the room who doesn't flinch, who doesn't engage in petty drama, who refuses to be pulled into emotional games. That kind of presence earns a deeper form of respect, the kind that lasts. You're not loud, but you're heard. You're not defensive, but you're powerful. Because in a world addicted to reaction, your ability to remain still is magnetic. People may even begin to think twice before trying to provoke you again, not out of fear, but out of respect. They'll remember how gracefully you handled it the last time, and they'll know there's no point in trying to rattle someone who cannot be shaken. You may not be able to change the behavior of others, but you can choose how you define yourself in every situation, and that definition becomes your armor. When you replace emotional reaction with calm redirection, you send a quiet but clear message to the world. I own myself. I know my worth. And no one's words can take that away from me. So the next time someone throws a verbal jab, don't swing back. Smile, take a breath, and steer the conversation towards something calm and unrelated. You're not ignoring the insult. You're showing that it holds no weight. You're choosing peace, and in doing so, you're choosing power. Because when you remain composed in moments meant to unbalance you, you teach others that your self-worth isn't up for discussion. And that lesson, the one you give without raising your voice, is the one that commands the most respect. Fifth tip: walk away when respect is no longer there. Have you ever found yourself in a place where your voice wasn't heard, your value wasn't seen, and your presence was taken for granted? Maybe it was in the workplace, where your ideas were dismissed, your efforts overlooked, or maybe it was in a relationship, personal or professional, where the more you gave, the less you seemed to matter. If you've ever stayed in an environment where you constantly had to fight for basic respect, you've likely felt the deep weariness that comes with it. And maybe like many people, you told yourself to try harder, to be more patient, to prove yourself one more time. But what if the strongest move you could make was to leave? Stoic philosophy teaches us a truth that many of us ignore for too long. You are not obligated to stay in places where your worth is diminished. In fact, walking away can be the highest form of self-respect. It's not weakness. It's not surrender. It's strength. The kind of strength that comes from knowing what you're worth and refusing to let others treat you as anything less. In a world that often confuses endurance with virtue, Stoicism invites you to consider a deeper question. Am I staying because it's right, or because I'm afraid to leave? It's easy to romanticize the idea of being the one who never gives up. But Stoicism is not about clinging to unhealthy dynamics, or enduring disrespect to prove a point. It's about clarity. It's about choosing where to invest your time, your energy, and your soul. And sometimes the bravest, most powerful choice you can make is to get up and walk away from a place that no longer honors your value. Consider this. Staying somewhere that constantly erodes your confidence is not noble. It's self-destructive. Imagine watering a plant in toxic soil, hoping it will thrive if you just give it more attention. No matter how much you care, the roots won't survive. The same is true for your own growth. When the environment is wrong, your potential withers. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember what you're really capable of. There's a story I'll never forget, a true example of walking away with grace and power. A friend of mine, Sarah, was one of the most creative and hardworking people I've ever met. She joined a company full of promise, excited to contribute and make an impact. But very quickly, things turned sour. Her manager frequently undermined her in meetings, dismissed her suggestions without reason, and made sarcastic comments in front of the team. At first, Sarah thought she could fix it. She worked harder, stayed later, took on more than anyone else, believing that excellence would eventually be rewarded. But the truth was, she was trying to earn respect from people who had no intention of giving it. After months of feeling invisible and frustrated, something shifted. During a pivotal meeting, her idea, one she had spent weeks refining, was shot down within seconds, without consideration. She looked around the room and realized something important. It wasn't that her work lacked value. It was that these people had chosen not to see it. That's when Sarah made the most important decision of her career. Calmly, she closed her laptop, stood up, and said, "I need to be somewhere that values what I bring. This isn't it." And she walked out, not in anger, but in certainty. That same week, she submitted her resignation. Months later, she was offered a leadership role at another company, one that welcomed her ideas and gave her room to grow. Today, she's thriving. Not because she fought to be accepted, but because she had the courage to leave when respect was no longer present. That's what Stoicism teaches us. You don't need to beg for respect. You don't need to chase approval. You simply need to act in alignment with your inner values. And when you know who you are, walking away becomes easier. Not because it's painless, but because you understand that protecting your self-worth is non-negotiable. Some people will never appreciate your value no matter what you do. Not because you're not enough, but because they're committed to misunderstanding you. The more you try to prove yourself to those people, the more power you give away. And with every moment you stay in an environment that chips away at your confidence, you slowly teach yourself that mistreatment is acceptable. That's why walking away matters so much. It's not about punishing others, it's about protecting yourself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You can't control how others treat you, but you can control whether you continue to allow it. You can choose to draw a line and say, "This is not where I belong." And in that decision, you reclaim every ounce of dignity that others tried to strip away. This doesn't mean walking away is always the first answer. There are times to stand your ground, to speak up, to give things time. But there is also a moment, a very specific, unmistakable moment, when you realize that nothing you do will change the situation. And in that moment, your choice becomes clear. You can either stay and lose pieces of yourself every day, or you can leave and begin to rebuild your confidence, your peace, and your future. What's most powerful about walking away is that it's quiet. There's no need for drama, no grand declarations. It's a private decision made in stillness and clarity, and it says something incredibly strong. I respect myself too much to stay where I'm not respected. So how do you know when it's time to go? You know when the space you're in demands more than it gives, when you feel more drained than inspired, when every effort to contribute is met with silence, or worse, with criticism. You know when the people around you no longer see your light, or worse, when they try to dim it. That's when you walk, not because you're weak, but because you've finally remembered your strength. Stoicism reminds us that the only approval we truly need is our own. And when we honor that truth, we stop settling. We stop shrinking ourselves to fit into places we've outgrown, and we start walking boldly in the direction of the life we deserve. So if you ever find yourself in a space that refuses to respect you, don't stay to prove a point. Don't keep waiting for things to change. Get up, walk away, and carry your peace with you. Because where you're going next will require every bit of confidence you've been fighting to hold on to. And that journey, the one that begins the moment you choose self-respect over silent suffering, is the one that will change your life forever. 6th tip. Let your standards speak louder than your words. Have you ever met someone who didn't say much, but the moment they walked into a room, you could just feel something different about them? They weren't loud, they didn't dominate the conversation, but there was something about the way they carried themselves, the way they listened, the way they moved, the way they responded, that commanded instant respect. That's not charisma. That's not charm. That's standards. And when you live by high personal standards, you don't need to ask for respect. You become someone who naturally earns it without ever saying a word. In today's world, people are quick to speak but slow to act. They talk about discipline, loyalty, honesty. But when things get hard, those words often fade. Stoicism teaches us that it's not what you say that defines you, it's what you repeatedly do. Your behavior reveals your standards more loudly than your voice ever could. The way you handle stress, the way you show up on time, the way you treat others even when no one's watching, these are all silent messages you send to the world, and people are always listening even when you think they aren't. High standards don't have to be loud or dramatic. In fact, the most powerful ones are invisible. They show up in small decisions, daily routines, and subtle choices that others overlook. Waking up early when no one is keeping track. Doing the right thing even when it's inconvenient. Refusing to gossip even when everyone else is doing it. Speaking with integrity even if it cost you something. These aren't just habits, they're statements. And over time, they build a reputation that no one can deny. Marcus Aurelius didn't lecture people into respecting him. He didn't threaten, argue, or seek admiration. He lived his values day by day with quiet strength, and because of that, history remembers him not just as a Roman emperor, but as a philosopher king. His power didn't come from his title, it came from his character, and that's what Stoicism teaches us to cultivate. Not external power, but internal alignment. Not loud demands, but quiet discipline. When you live by high standards, you start to create boundaries without ever needing to explain them. You don't have to say, "I expect to be treated with respect." You just refuse to stay in situations where you're disrespected. You don't need to announce that you value honesty, you just never lie, and over time people come to learn what you will and won't tolerate. Not because you told them, but because you've shown them. This applies to every part of life. In relationships, when you show up consistently, treat others with kindness, and don't entertain disrespect, you make it clear what kind of energy you accept. In work, when you deliver what you promise, meet your deadlines, and never cut corners, you communicate your values without needing to boast. And even in casual interactions, like the way you greet a stranger or how you handle a disagreement, your standards shine through. The real strength here is that you're not relying on others to validate you. You don't need praise, you don't need applause, because your standards aren't for them. They're for you. They're a reflection of who you are when no one is watching. And when your inner life is aligned with your outer behavior, that integrity becomes undeniable. People sense it, and whether they like you or not, they respect you, because they know you're not pretending. This kind of self-leadership is rare. It's easy to follow trends. It's easy to say the right thing when everyone's listening. But it's hard to be consistent when no one is keeping score. That's why so few people have lasting respect, because they chase approval instead of building character. But you're here because you want more than momentary validation. You want the kind of self-respect that can't be shaken, the kind that grows stronger with every test. And that starts by deciding, what are my standards? Not the ones you post about, not the ones you hope people see, but the real ones, the ones you live by. What do you accept from others? What do you accept from yourself? What kind of effort do you put into your work, your relationships, your health, your growth? The answers to those questions are your foundation, and once you raise that foundation, the world responds. People begin to treat you differently. They become more careful with their words, more thoughtful in your presence. Not because you've demanded it, but because you've made it clear through your consistency that you are someone who respects yourself deeply. And that changes everything. Stoicism isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. And when you live by strong standards, you don't just protect your peace, you inspire others to raise their own. You become a mirror, showing people what discipline, integrity, and calm strength really look like. The beauty of it is you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to keep showing up the way someone with high standards does, quietly, consistently, every day. So the next time you're faced with disrespect, remember, you don't need to argue, you don't need to react, you don't need to explain yourself. Just keep living your truth. Let your presence speak for itself. Let your actions set the tone. Let your standards carry the weight of your character. No. Because when your standards are strong enough, they speak louder than any words ever could. You've now learned 6 powerful ways to command respect through calm, clarity, and inner strength. From first impressions to quiet exits, each tool is rooted in Stoic wisdom, reminding us that true respect starts from within. You don't need to shout, prove, or please. You just need to live by your values with discipline and presence. So ask yourself, which of these lessons will you use today? Not someday, today, because the way you show up right now teaches others how to treat you for the rest of your life. If this message spoke to you, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. Just type, "I choose self-respect" to let us know you're walking this path with us. Thanks for watching. And remember, when you carry yourself with quiet strength, you don't chase respect, you attract it.